right. Hi, Ron. So, I went over the car with Dave. I kind of told him what I saw. Pretty much what it comes down to is just poor prep work. With the vets, it can be temperamental because it's fiberglass. So the fiberglass moves a lot to the point where there's a lot of stress cracks underneath that weren't either addressed properly. So especially in the back of the car, but in the front, the paint's just, there's a lot of areas like on the nose here, there's stress cracks that you could see through the paint. A lot of the things that, like there's like 3 sections of like porous spots that either were just sealed over and not primed, because since the fiberglass is porous, you got 3 spots that look like they were sanded through, and they kind of got little flat spots. A lot of stuff like that throughout. In the back, probably the area you see the most when you get gas, you'll see there's a lot of spider cracking in the paint. I know with fiberglass it's never going to be straight, but as far as the ground work, the ground coats, they either just sealed it and painted it and didn't sand it a lot, but you can actually still see in this area there's actually cracked paint, and that's probably from this moving around over the years. And there's a lot of spider cracking, paint checking underneath stuff that wasn't sanded out, and there is no way you can cover that up. That stuff will just continuously shrink, and you will see it through the paint. The only way to properly fix it would be to actually sand this down and properly top coat it with probably like a polyester primer, which is a little bit harder than a regular primer, to kind of give it a nice substrate to seal and primer and all that stuff over it.
Is that like an epoxy primer?
No, it's the polyester primer is pretty much like sprayable body filler. It uses the same hardener that you use for fiberglass, like resin.
Yeah, I've used that. That's easier to sand than the epoxy primer.
Yeah, and it's fairly thick, but it's actually pretty much sprayable like fiberglass. It's used.
Yeah, we use that on my car.
Yeah, and that is an ideal product to put on, when everything's been sanded. But again, I don't know exactly what was done, so my guess is that the time wasn't put there, the effort wasn't put there for what was there. Nothing was, nothing was talked about as far as what the outcome could have been, or what the expectation could have been. In my opinion, I think there's a lot of areas where you see here, like where if you catch it right in the light, you actually see the rings where stuff wasn't feathered out, and then you get a section here of broken paint where there isn't broken paint here, but there is here underneath. So like some areas were sanded or repaired, and it's just all over the place. You got like bite marks from the DA throughout. So somebody was sanding stuff out, and it's got like random marks from the DA where
I don't think the camera's going to pick it up.
You won't pick it up, but reference the video for sure, and you can see those spots. And
so why don't you tell Ron a little bit about what our game plan is today and what we're going to try to avoid doing, and how, like, what we're going to start with and finish with.
I think we have to approach it the least evasive way possible.
To try not to break through.
Because this has been buffed, but what you're seeing is underneath the paint, and there is no remedying that unless you completely sand it down
and start over.
Because a lot of what you're seeing, especially in some of these areas where I can tell it's been heavily buffed, we really don't have much room to work with. And especially like on the sail panel here, there was an area where there was a pretty heavy run, and I could still make it out. So this area has been sanded quite a bit. There's areas on the car that have not been sanded that we're going to clean up, but really we're limited to what we can do, and really can't do much in some of those areas.
So Ron talked about how the back of the mirrors didn't get painted at all, and underneath the sail panel over here didn't get painted at all whatsoever. So tell them about your idea, what we were talking about, instead of taking these mirrors off.
I think instead of taking these off, what we can do is mask off the door, open it, and get color behind, because without properly taking stuff apart, the mirrors, you're going to try to work around a bunch of stuff, And to get them out right, you know, you got to.
And we may, like you said, if we take them off now, we may actually damage some paint underneath.
Yeah, because this wasn't
Might peel
removed, so
back.
they painted right up to the edge, and you run the risk of actually peeling paint off because paint has built up around the mirror and the door together as one unit.
Right.
And there's that risk factor. So, and then also, again, with properly taking them apart, it would involve to take a lot of the door apart. But I think as far as the what we can do, we're very limited here to what we can do and clean it up a bit more. I just think it's whatever. I don't know what they did, but there's just paint checking all over the place.
But you can see they didn't sand it or seal it properly. They didn't go through the initial steps before they started putting paint on it. So I think we should just wrap it up here because we need to get to work.
Yep.
And we just wanted to document a little bit about what was some of the things that you as a professional in the paint industry see. So, Ron,
much.
I hope it turns out good. That's all I can say. Yeah. All right.
All right, so.
Do you want to take it out?
Huh?
Oh.
I was recording a video,
Sorry,
Dave.
man.
We're impromptu here. It doesn't matter. I got Dave, my sanding wench.
Bitch?
Wench. I didn't say bitch, but I could say that. So we're, to add to the video that I'm going to post with this, we're kind of saving this horrible butcher paint job, and it's actually coming around. But it's just lessons learned the hard way. If it's too good to be true, it's not going to turn out good. The person who painted this car just took no pride in their work and didn't bother sanding in much, or they pretty much denibbed it. But I think we've been sanding on it for like 3 hours. I started buffing this side, and I should have probably taken a before picture of this cowl, how bad the whole car looked. It looked just like this. You could still kind of see. We were taking it easy here because it's a sharp area, but this car is actually, it might be something presentable by the time we're all done. So I started buffing it. I did the one side, and I'll probably finish buffing it next week as I want to go back over. I want to really make this look as good as possible. Now that I'm invested into it this far and it's actually turning out good, I kind of, it would be nice to have this thing looking really, really good. It's a one-owner car. He bought it new, and it's pretty damn original, man. It's kind of not the biggest vet guy in the world, but you know, it's clearly something special to him. You keep something this long, and you know, but you just be careful. When somebody says they can paint your car for $2,000, don't. It's too cheap. You spend that much alone in materials.
There's a